Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something incredibly important, but something that often flies under the radar, and that's the hidden risk of financial abuse after someone suffers a brain injury. It's a really serious issue, and just knowing about it is the very first step in protecting the people we love.
So, let's just put the question right out there. What is that invisible thread connecting a brain injury to someone's life savings? It's not something you'd immediately think of, but believe me, that connection is there and it's powerful.
All right, let's get into it. First up, we're going to explore what we're calling the unseen danger. This is all about why this vulnerability even exists to begin with.
Okay, so picture this. Someone has a brain injury. Maybe it's from an accident, a stroke, doesn't matter. The obvious focus is on their physical recovery, right? But what's happening beneath the surface is that these injuries can create these subtle changes that make managing money, well, incredibly hard. And that's when their financial security starts to be quietly put at risk.
So to really get a handle on the problem, we've got to break it down. We're going to walk through 5 key areas, 5 vulnerabilities that really explain why people with brain injuries are at such a high risk for financial abuse.
First on the list, cognitive impairments. Now this is a big one. It's all about the changes in how a person thinks, how they process information, and how they remember things. All the skills that are absolutely essential for managing your money.
And these aren't just vague problems. We're talking about specific things. Like memory issues can make it almost impossible to remember if you've paid a bill or to even spot a weird charge on your bank statement. And at the same time, the part of your brain that handles decision-making might be damaged, making it really tough to weigh the pros and cons of a financial choice.
Okay, the second area we need to look at is emotional vulnerabilities. A brain injury can totally change someone's emotional landscape. And unfortunately, predatory people, they are masters at spotting and exploiting those changes.
And this is where it gets really scary. Someone might become way too trusting, making them a prime target for a manipulative caregiver or even just a so-called friend. On top of that, things like anxiety or mood swings can make them really dependent on someone else, and an abuser can twist that dependency to get total control of their finances.
So let's move on to our third point, which is physical limitations. These are the more obvious challenges, right? But they can create a very clear path toward financial abuse. Really, this all boils down to one word: dependence. When someone needs help with just about everything, from getting groceries to going to the bank, they have to put a massive amount of trust in their caregivers. And if that trust is in the wrong person, the door for abuse is just wide open. Simple things we all take for granted, like driving to the bank or using a keyboard to pay bills online, might suddenly be impossible.
All right, number 4, this one is a huge factor: social isolation. A brain injury often causes people to pull back from their friends, from their community, and that removes a really important layer of protection.
Think of your friends and family as a kind of personal security system. When someone becomes isolated, that system goes offline. There are fewer eyes around to notice the red flags, like say if they're suddenly having money problems or there's some new person who's always around. That lack of oversight makes someone a much, much easier target.
And that brings us to our 5th and final vulnerability: a lack of financial literacy. Now, this might have been a thing even before the injury, but it becomes so much more dangerous when you mix it with all these new cognitive challenges. So, look, if someone already had a pretty shaky understanding of things like budgets or investments, a brain injury can make it feel impossible to learn or keep up. And when you combine that with difficulty processing information, well, it gets incredibly hard to spot a scam or realize that a request for money is totally fraudulent. It's a perfect storm for exploitation. Okay, we've laid out the problem, and I know it's a lot, but just understanding the risks is only half the story. The really important question, the one that truly matters, is what can we do about it? How can we actually help? And that brings us to our final section, and honestly the most important one: building a shield of protection. Here, we're going to shift gears and focus on proactive, concrete steps that we as family, friends, and caregivers can take.
Let's walk through this 5-step shield. Step 1, educate. Find simple, easy-to-understand resources about budgeting and how to spot common scams. Step 2, monitor. This has to be done gently and with respect, but sit down and review financial statements together. Step 3, build a trusted network. This is key. Make sure more than one trustworthy person has eyes on the situation. Step 4, promote independence. Help them handle small financial tasks on their own to build up their confidence. And finally, Step 5, encourage open communication. You have to create a safe space where they know they can talk about any financial worries without ever feeling judged. When it all comes down to it, here's the bottom line. There is no single magic bullet. The absolute best defense is a combination of being aware of all the risks we just talked about and having a strong, active support system from people who genuinely care. Your proactive involvement, it's everything.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you know about these unseen dangers, just take a second to think. Who in your community, in your own family, or in your circle of friends, who could you help protect today?